The background of the story is essentially this. Worcester had fraternities and sororities, but they weren't national or international. They were just local. So, in order to keep with the fraternity tradition, they had names like I was in, there were 7 sections, no, 8, I'm sorry, and I think 7 clubs. The clubs were like for the girls, and the sections were for the men. So it was pretty much traditional. Since it was, we had very few commuters. We had a few people going part-time. We had very few married men or women. We had a couple Army veterans that had very few students of color, black or Mexican, or even Latino, or from China. Probably had more students from China and Japan than we did from the area that were black, or somehow they had found enough money to recruit a couple good black basketball players and football, but every fraternity had perhaps 30, 40 students in it. Some were a little smaller. 7th section, which I was in, was one of the larger ones. We had quite a variety of students in most disciplines. There were certain fraternities or sections that were known as sections. I don't know about the girls, but sections that kind of attracted gay people. The interesting thing is, none of us were particularly prejudiced against these people. I say these people, the gay guys. Some people kind of laughed a little bit about it, but there was Section 8 had more people that were into, I guess you would say, music and the arts and theater, and which kind of was traditionally associated with somebody more likely to be gay. There were smaller, like 5th section that supposedly attracted the intellects, but there's still was a lot of variety, And we all tended to have friends in all these, so it wasn't a big deal. But at the beginning of the year, when you got to Worcester as a freshman, they gave you a little beanie to wear. And if a sophomore or upperclassman saw you, you were supposed to wear this beanie. Although not everybody did all the time, of course. You were supposed to, they were supposed to say, Dink, Frosh, and you were supposed to tip your little beanie to them. And that was just tradition, and most people kind of halfway abided by it, and some people, wasn't anything that anybody took real seriously, unless you had some smart aleck sophomore or junior who wanted to make a big deal about the fact that you didn't tip your beanie to him. Girls were pretty well. I don't remember that if girls had a beanie or not. I think they did. I think everybody did. Okay, so about the first week of school, we heard about what would be coming up in a week or so, in the next week, and that was what they called the freshman run out. It would occur on a night, usually in the middle of the week, where the sophomores would come to your room, your dorm room, your most of us weren't in fraternities yet, because fraternities had their own section of each dorm, and so we were in the extra room. Okay, sophomores would come to your door at some ridiculous hour, like 2 a.m., get you out of bed, and you would have to run around the town of Wooster, which would be about like running around the town of Marshalltown. I don't know how far. And they had a route all mapped out, and and there were a lot of freshmen who said when that happened, they weren't going to go. Nobody could make them run around Worcester at 2 in the morning. Well, I guess mob psychology took over, because when everybody else was getting out, went out. So I can't swear that every freshman went out on this adventure. I can assure you that every freshman cheated in order to try to avoid running around the whole town, because it was all marked out, and there were supposed to be upperclassmen, checking you to make sure you didn't try to take a shortcut. But everybody did take a shortcut, or most everybody, except those real unlucky people who would get caught by a upperclassman and have to go back and rerun something, So. Now, so that was the two main things in the fall, this dink frosh thing, which just kind of petered out about halfway through the semester, and secondly, the run out, and then the pledging, which didn't amount to much. My friend Dave Anderson had a friend in 7th section, and he wanted Dave to be in there, and so Dave asked me if I would be in 7th section. I said sure. So somewhere I still have a little fraternity pin that I think says. The ironic thing is, our Greek logo was KKK, Kappa Kappa Kappa, which to me was, why? But anyway.
Right.
I think we had one black fraternity member, and I think a couple Japanese Americans anyway. There's another Cochran in my fraternity, spelled the same way, John Cochran. We talked about whether we might be related, but I think he was from the East Coast. But anyway, so that was, you were now a member, or at least a tentative member of Kappa Kappa Kappa. But in the spring, you had to go through a Hell Week in order to become a full member. And Hell Week was supposedly a leftover from years before, when there were national fraternities at Wooster, and a student was killed during Hell Week by trying to swallow, this is a story, swallow something disgusting like raw liver, and died. And the parents of this student were naturally upset, so they said, this is a story now. This is a story. We will give X amount of dollars to Worcester to do away with national fraternities because of our son's death at Hell Week. Now, if I was going to do that, I'd also say, and I don't want any sort of Hell Week going on, whether it's been fraternity or not. Supposedly, they left the fraternity structure alone, so the fraternities could still have Hell Week, which they did up till, maybe 15, 20 years ago, when it has now become Help Week, where they go out in the community and do good deeds, But anyway, at that time, Hell Week had existed since or for at least 20 years, I'd say. I'm sure you could find the history of it. But anyway, so Dave Anderson and myself and about 10 other guys were rounded up. Oh, we knew this was coming up. It was one of the last weeks of school, and our fraternity brothers gathered us together, those of us that were pledges, and gave us a sheet of paper that was on a Friday night. Gave us a sheet of paper that told us what we were supposed to find on this scavenger hunt. Oh, before that happened, I think it was the night before. Well, let me back up. Before that, that week was known as Hell Week because it started out with each fraternity having kind of their own costume that they wore all week. But there was more than a costume involved. For example, one section, one fraternity, the men had to go to the local fish store, get a fish and put it in their underwear or jock strap or whatever, or tie it around their waist and keep it there all week, which smelled pretty bad. That wasn't our section. Our section tended to pick on people that other fraternities kind of thought were smart alecks. Now, luckily, I wasn't considered a smart aleck. My roommate, who later became my roommate, Dave Anderson, was. So somebody dreamed up something for him to do that week. Dave was quite a ladies' man, so it wasn't. By the end of the first semester, probably by the end of the first week, he had a girlfriend. And his girlfriend was kind of a sweet little thing. They made Dave wear underneath his clothing a kind of device that had, where it had a sign that said, "Pull this." It was like a little lever. Well, the problem with pulling that is it pulled his privates. And most of the girls or most of everybody who saw it just laughed, But Dave's little girlfriend thought that was funny, and she yanked it one time, and before she knew what it was pretty painful for her. But anyway, I cannot remember what we had to wear or do. I think it was something that was relatively harmless. And some fraternities didn't overdo that. They made a special T-shirt or said, that said fifth section, or something, fifth section pledge. Another fraternity made their pledges every morning eat a couple cloves of garlic. You could smell those people pretty far away. So, and during the week there were various activities, like our fraternity, our section of rooms was on the third floor of Calc Hall of a particular dorm. And what our active members made us do, we start out they build a fire, not a real big one, they build a fire in the courtyard of this dorm, and we had to run in our underwear from the third floor with a mouthful of water and get that fire out. Now, of course, meanwhile, they're down there putting gasoline on it, and you're never going to. And, of course, all of this stuff is all this stuff includes threats. If you don't do this, you don't get this done, you don't do it right, blah, blah, blah. You're no longer a pledge of the great seventh section. Of course, looking back, you think, how stupid, but anyway, you're caught up in it. So here we are running up and down trying, and of course we never get the fire off. Then we have activities up there in that room, like we had a feed where you had to eat. We didn't have raw liver, but I remember a couple disgusting things. Oh, I can't remember what it was, but stuff that you wouldn't ordinarily eat, let's put it that way. And, we had to stand on a table, and they put thumbtacks around. And there would just be enough space to jump in there without getting your feet stuck with thumbtacks. But then they'd blindfold you and turn you around about 30 times on this table and then you were supposed to jump. Well, in the meantime, they'd taken the thumbtacks away, but nobody knew that, or you didn't know that if you were up there. Some of us figured that out because we weren't the last to jump or the first to jump. The first people who had to jump were the nervous ones. So we had other stupid stuff to do like that. And that was like maybe Wednesday night or something. The interesting thing was the faculty knew this was Hell Week, and so most of them took it easy on us. Not everybody, but most of the faculty kind of let schoolwork, homework, papers kind of slide during that week because they knew not much was going to get done, at least particularly with their freshmen. So that week on Friday night was when we had the big scavenger hunt. They gave us a list of things to do by the next morning. I think we're supposed to be back so Friday night we're supposed to be back by 8 o'clock on Saturday morning. And we got this list about supper time. And the active members, or those that, not every active member messed around with this, but a lot of them did. They told they could, we could divide up this list. But couldn't have any money, so they'd search us. But we knew this was coming, so a lot of people managed to get a little money hidden. Couldn't have a car. Well, that wasn't a problem because we weren't allowed cars on campus anyway. And there might have been a couple that had cars, but took their keys away well, I hid a little money. Everybody hid money. I mean, they didn't search you that well. You can hide some under your shoe somehow, or in your shoe. And this list took you to Canton and to Wooster, to Orville, that's where Orville, what's it? The shoe store, not shoe store. The jelly and jam place is. Anyway, so you were supposed to hitchhike to those places or find your way to get there, but first thing I did was call a friend of mine in Berea who had a car, Dick Keck. His brother is the one I thought the McKays might know. Anyway, I called Dick and said, bring your car, we're going on a scavenger hunt. So he came down. Somebody else had a car or got a hold of a car. So there were like 4 of us in each car, plus a driver. Big old boats. And we divided up this list. Now, even before we left, we complained to one of the guys that gave us this list. We're not going to be able to do this. We don't want to get killed. Because what it said was, bring back a item of underwear from the homecoming queen of Akron University. Well, we had found out, or her address, she was living at home with her parents. I'm sure we're going to knock on her door and tell her dad, we want a pair of your daughter's panties. Well, they agree, the authorities agreed. Well, get a handkerchief or something from her, if you can. So, then there were other things that we probably could have figured out without actually doing the work. One of the things we had to bring back was the answer to certain questions. This question was, how many faces on the totem pole at Akron University or some park in Akron? Well, maybe if we'd been smart, we could have thought it's probably going to be 7, because 7th section, which it was, but we found took us, it seemed like hours. Oh, and our faces were colored like we were Indians, and we had weird clothes to wear, I forget what. So we kept getting stopped by cops or other people wanting to know what in the world we were doing. Well, anyway, trying to think of some of the other things. Most of them involved looking around, trying to find somebody who knew somebody, and trying to get to places without disturbing the authorities. And of course, now we're talking about, Canton is 30, 40 miles from Wooster. Akron is even further. And each item that we were supposed to get seemed to be harder than the last item. So, and of course, this is all backed up with threats about if we're not back at 8 a.m. on the dot, we're no longer pledges of 7th section. We're out of bounds. So we got most of the things. We never did get the handkerchief. I remember getting up to her house and trying to elect someone to go knock on the door at 2 a.m. or whatever it was by this time. And we couldn't get anybody to do it. I wasn't going to do it. So we just had to back out of that, and of course we got chewed out for not doing that and threatened and everything. And about all I remember is after we finally got back and presented our list, we were exhausted and all went to bed. So that was Hell Week. The next year they kind of toned it down. I didn't have much of a party in it. I was too busy trying to pass a few classes. But anyway, that was Hell Week at Wooster. Would have been 1953.